2 months. That's how long I had been in Whispering Pines. Not long enough to know everyone's names, but just long enough to understand the rhythm of the place. It was the kind of neighborhood that advertised itself as exclusive, though what that really meant was expensive, quiet, and managed by a homeowners association that considered itself more important than Congress. To be fair, it suited me at first. After 5 years of grinding 14-hour days building my startup from nothing, I finally cashed out, took a deep breath, and decided it was time to enjoy what I'd earned. That meant a modern mansion tucked in the corner of a cul-de-sac, a home gym I actually used, and the one indulgence I dreamed about since college, a matte black Lamborghini Huracan. It gleamed in the sun like a spaceship dropped from the future, and it was the first thing you saw when you turned onto Cypress Grove Lane. Most people loved it, or at least pretended to. Neighbors would glance from their mailboxes or walking their dogs, feigning casual disinterest but sneaking one more look as they passed. Kids on bikes stopped to gawk. One even asked if it transformed into a robot. That one made my week. Whispering Pines was supposed to be where you relaxed and minded your business. And I did. Until she moved in. Karen. I didn't know her name was Karen at first. Of course, that's not her real name, but everyone in the neighborhood started calling her that behind closed doors before the second week was out. She moved in with an energy that practically declared war on peace. Big blonde hair, aviator sunglasses that never came off even indoors, and a mouth that ran faster than the moving truck that unloaded her matching patio furniture. Day she moved in, she knocked on my door, not to say hello, but to inform me that her son would be taking the master bedroom in the house and that he was very sensitive to loud engines. So I might consider driving my Lamborghini more respectfully. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. 48 hours later, I found a letter taped to my door, written in swirling cursive on floral stationery. To whom it may concern, it began, as if she didn't know who the owner of the only Lamborghini in the neighborhood might be. Your vehicle is in violation of Whispering Pines' commitment to aesthetic harmony. Please consider garage parking at all times. This will preserve the community's intended visual experience.
Regat, HOA.
No signature, no official seal, just a smug, passive-aggressive declaration of war. I tossed it. No one tells me where to park my car on my own property. I'd read the HOA guidelines when I moved in. Yes, they were thick as a phone book, but nowhere did it say I couldn't park in my driveway. I wasn't blocking the sidewalk. I wasn't blasting music. My car wasn't leaking oil. It was just too cool, I guess, and Karen couldn't stand it. Still, I let it go. Until the next morning. I was outside early, around 7:30 a.m., rinsing off some light pollen that had settled on the car overnight. I always found the task kind of meditative. Water, microfiber towel, a little detailing spray, it was my ritual. The rest of the street was mostly still asleep. Then I heard footsteps. I turned around, and there he was. Braden. He strutted up my driveway like he owned it. Probably 19, maybe 20. Just out of high school or maybe kicked out of community college. He wore those oversized fake Gucci sunglasses, a Supreme hoodie that looked like it came from a flea market, and Yeezys that were probably drop-shipped from somewhere that didn't understand the word authentic. His whole vibe screamed trust fund poser. He didn't nod, didn't smile, just walked straight up and placed a hand on the hood of my car like he was inspecting a used Camry. You know, he said casually, you don't really deserve this. I blinked. Sorry, what? This car, he said, not even looking at me. Like, it's not you. You don't look like a Lambo guy. I stood there, hose still running in my hand. And what does a Lambo guy look like? He smirked, running his fingers along the fender. Not you, bro. But it's cool. My mom's the HOA president now. We can make this go away. I laughed out loud. Couldn't help it. Wait. Let me get this straight. You want me to what? Sell the car? Hide it? Because your mom got herself voted into a neighborhood committee. He stepped closer. Too close. We are the rules, he said. If she says something's gotta go, it goes. That's how it works here. It was the most cartoon villain thing I'd heard since elementary school. I looked him over slowly, letting the silence stretch. You know what? I said finally. Check the handbook. He frowned.
Hoa bi lo.
Read them, because you're bluffing and badly. There's no rule about driveway parking. No rule about vehicle make or color. And definitely no rule that lets some kid with a fake Rolex start making demands. Braden's smile faded. You think you're smart, huh?
No, irraplia.
I know I am. And if your mom actually tries something official, I'll see her in court. He scoffed, pulled out his phone, and took a picture of my license plate. Did you just? Evidence, he said. For the next meeting. You mean the neighborhood book club? That one landed. His face turned redder than the Supreme logo on his hoodie. He turned and stormed off down the drive, muttering something about respect and undeserved wealth. I stood there, watching him leave, shaking my head. What the hell had I gotten myself into? It wasn't just a one-time thing. That first confrontation with Braden was only the start of what became a full-blown campaign. Whispering Pines was supposed to be a retreat from stress, a break from the non-stop grind that had defined my 20s. But Karen and her son were turning it into a battlefield. Quietly at first, but increasingly bold with each passing day. The strange thing was, it was never outright illegal, not yet. It was all these petty, calculated moves meant to frustrate, intimidate, and push me into bending. And maybe that's what made it worse. It was so passive-aggressive it was practically performance art. Death by 1,000 cuts. But every one came with a smile and a flourish of HOA letterhead. It started with a notice in my mailbox, an official HOA courtesy reminder that my Lamborghini, and I quote, posed a visual disruption to the architectural unity of the neighborhood. I'd already laughed off the first letter Karen had taped to my door, but this was different. This one was printed with the Whispering Pines HOA letterhead. It had her signature at the bottom now, but I recognized her handwriting in the margins where she had scribbled, "Please adhere before formal action is necessary." The gall. There was no specific violation cited, just vague language about visual uniformity and disruption of ambience. I emailed the HOA board, which consisted of 5 people, including Karen. 2 responded apologetically and said they'd look into it. 1 didn't respond at all. The last one, a guy named Dale who I'd briefly met while jogging, actually called me. He sounded irritated and a little embarrassed. "Look, off the record," he said. "Karen pushed that letter through without board approval. Technically, we're supposed to vote on every formal notice. She's being a bit aggressive." "A bit?" I asked. Dale sighed. "Just ignore it for now. We'll handle it internally." But they didn't, or couldn't, because Karen wasn't operating alone. She had Braden, her overgrown man-child of a son, acting like the enforcer of her delusions. Over the next week, I noticed him loitering near the edge of my lawn, always on his phone, sometimes snapping pictures of the car or my house. One night, I came back late from dinner in the city and saw him sprinting away from my driveway like he'd just egged my garage. Though to be fair, nothing was damaged that time. Then came the noise complaints. I was stunned when I got an email from the HOA informing me that I'd violated the community's quiet hours ordinance by revving my engine too early in the morning. Except, I'd been out of town that whole weekend. The car had never moved. I had plane tickets and GPS data to prove it. When I confronted Karen via email, copying the full board, of course, she simply replied, "We must all be accountable for how our presence affects the tranquility of others. Thank you for understanding." I didn't respond, but I did buy 2 extra Ring cameras and installed them on the driveway and the front door, just in case. Things calmed down for a few days and I thought maybe they were backing off. But I should have known better. The peace didn't last. A few mornings later, I woke up to find a bright orange sticker slapped onto the Lambo's windshield. It looked like one of those abandoned vehicle notices the city gives out, but closer inspection revealed it to be another HOA document. This one filled with made-up citations about excessive engine displacement and commercial-grade vehicle presence in residential zones. I laughed out loud reading it. Whoever wrote it had clearly Googled some legal terms and mashed them together like refrigerator poetry. It made zero legal sense. But I wasn't laughing that afternoon when I noticed a tiny scratch across the driver's side door. It was small, probably done with a key or a belt buckle, but it hadn't been there the day before. My gut told me who did it. I checked the footage, and there he was, Braden. 2:47 a.m. He approached the car slowly, looked around like he was casing a store, then ran one finger along the side. It didn't look like he was holding anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was testing me. Seeing how closely I watched, my fists clenched just watching it. Technically, it wasn't proof. Not for the police, anyway. I filed it away, mentally and digitally, under Phase 1, harassment. The final straw, the thing that flipped this from passive-aggressive weirdness into actual criminal behavior, happened just 5 days later. It was a Thursday evening, humid and clear, and I decided to treat myself to takeout from a local steakhouse. I placed the order, jumped in my Jeep, not the Lambo, I don't drive that every day, and was gone for maybe 25 minutes. When I came back, my phone buzzed. Ring camera alert. Movement in the driveway. I pulled into the garage and watched the live feed. There, in the frame, was Braden. Hood up, driver's side door open, sitting in the car like he was about to drive off into the sunset with it. I froze for a second, then hit record and called 911. The operator was calm. I gave them the address and the situation, and she told me officers were already in the area. ETA 4 minutes. I stayed out of sight, watching through the window as Braden fumbled around inside the car. He was clearly trying to start it, watching a video on his phone while fiddling under the dash like he was disarming a bomb. I had a kill switch installed when I bought it, so there was no way he was actually going to succeed. But still, the sight of him inside my car, like he had the right to be there, set my blood boiling. Lights flashed at the end of the cul-de-sac. 2 patrol cars. Braden didn't even notice them at first. He was too busy watching his phone. One officer approached from the sidewalk, another from the street. They had him out of the car and in cuffs before he even registered what was happening. I opened the garage and stepped out, phone in hand, already showing them the live footage. One of the officers nodded approvingly and took my statement. Braden kept trying to talk his way out of it, yelling about how it was all a misunderstanding, and that his mom owned the HOA, and that I had given him permission. No, I said calmly, looking directly at the officer. I most definitely did not give him permission. That is my car, parked on my property, and I have video of him trying to hotwire it. You can see the tool in his hand. They bagged the wire pick and his phone as evidence. That's when Karen arrived. She pulled up in a navy blue BMW X5, tires squealing slightly as she parked crooked in front of my mailbox. The second she saw the cuffs on her son's wrists, she exploded. What is the meaning of this? You can't arrest him. I am the HOA president. This is my neighborhood. The officer didn't even blink. Ma'am, your son was caught attempting to break into and steal a vehicle. On camera. On private property. Your position in a private association has no legal bearing here. Karen was incredulous. This is ridiculous. He was making sure the car wasn't a fire hazard. That man, she jabbed a finger at me, has refused repeated HOA requests to remove that vehicle from view. It's practically abandoned. There are rules. There are laws, the officer replied. Your son broke several of them tonight. Felt surreal watching her unravel. For weeks, she had acted like a queen. Now, she was screaming on the sidewalk as Braden was loaded into the back of a police cruiser. His knockoff sunglasses knocked askew and his smug confidence gone. I stood silently as they drove away, the flashing lights disappearing into the night. For a moment, all was still. Karen turned to me, eyes burning. You think this is over? She said. You've humiliated my son. You'll regret this. I replied calmly. Your son did that all by himself. She stormed off. I went back inside and locked the door. The next morning was heavy with silence. After the previous night's chaos, the flashing lights, the yelling, the handcuffs. It was eerie how quiet the neighborhood had become. Whispering Pines was always subdued, but that Friday morning, it felt like everyone was holding their breath behind curtain windows. And who could blame them? It wasn't every day someone's golden boy got arrested trying to steal a Lamborghini off a neighbor's driveway. I didn't bother checking the neighborhood group chat. I didn't need to. People were talking. You could feel it in the stillness. I woke up late, slept in for the first time in a while. Normally I'd start the day with a quick workout or some email catch-up, but I couldn't focus. The adrenaline from the night before hadn't worn off yet. The image of Braden inside my car, hunched over the console like he was entitled to it, played on repeat in my mind. I kept wondering what would have happened if I hadn't had the cameras. What if I had come home 5 minutes later? Would he have managed to mess something up worse? Would Karen have claimed it was all my fault? I stepped outside with a cup of coffee and just looked at the car. My Lamborghini Huracan. Beautiful, pristine, untouched thanks to the quick response of local law enforcement, and maybe a little thanks to the hidden kill switch I had installed when I bought it. Braden had no idea what he was doing. His attempt to hotwire it had failed miserably, but he had still damaged a few things. The leather under the dash was nicked, and there were a couple of scratches around the ignition. The insurance company was already on it. I'd sent them the footage that night, and they were moving quickly. But still, it wasn't about the cost. It was the principle. Someone broke into my car, on my property, and thought they could get away with it. And not just someone. It was the smug, arrogant kid who lived across the street. The one whose mother had been targeting me for weeks under the guise of protecting the community. This wasn't just theft. It was obsession, entitlement, and revenge all rolled into one. By mid-morning, my phone started ringing. First it was Dale, the HOA board member who had warned me before. "You good?" he asked without preamble. "Yeah," I said. Little shaken, but the car's fine. Braden, though, I assume he's not. Dale sighed. "Karen's been blowing up the board chat all night. She says you entrapped her son." I actually laughed at that one. Entrapped him? The guy broke into my car. I wasn't even home. She's threatening to sue. Claims you orchestrated the whole thing. That the car is a hazardous object. And you provoked him into trying to move it. She's delusional. Oh, I know. Trust me. The rest of the board is done with her. This crossed a line. Did she get voted out? Not yet. But there's a meeting tonight. It's going to be eventful. I didn't respond right away. I was already making plans. By 3 p.m., the doorbell rang. A uniformed officer stood on the porch. A different one than the night before. This one was younger, more formal. "Mr. Lane?" he asked. "That's me. I'm with Precinct 17. Just following up on the incident from last night. We've filed the arrest report. Would you like a copy?" "Definitely." He handed it over in a manila envelope. "You'll also be contacted by the DA's office. They may ask for a statement. The evidence you submitted was clear: attempted grand theft auto, trespassing, and property damage. Based on his age and lack of prior record, he's likely looking at a plea deal." I figured. "Are you planning on pressing charges?" "I already did." He nodded. "Good. Most people back off when the neighbors get involved. But honestly, this kind of behavior needs consequences." I appreciated that. He was right. I wasn't going to let this slide just to keep the peace. Peace hadn't been an option the moment Karen decided she could rewrite the rules to suit herself. Around 6 p.m., the HOA held their emergency meeting. I didn't attend. I wasn't a board member, and I wasn't in the mood to watch Karen pretend to be a victim. But Dale filled me in later. "She exploded," he said. "Tried to hijack the meeting and make it about how you were, disrespecting community standards, and that your car had created a toxic environment." I chuckled. "Toxic?" "She even printed out photos of your driveway. Tried to claim you were running an illegal auto business out of your garage." "You're kidding." "Nope." Said she had evidence that you were selling cars from your home. It was all nonsense. The board shut her down within 15 minutes. What happened after that? She stormed out. But we voted to suspend her authority as HOA president until a formal investigation is completed. Well, that's something. I think she knows it's over. That night, I poured myself a drink. Not a celebration drink. Not yet, but something close. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't fighting this alone. Braden had been arrested. Karen had lost control. The tide was turning. Over the next few days, the fallout unfolded like something out of a soap opera. Braden was officially charged, and though the charges were reduced from attempted grand theft to unauthorized use of a vehicle and trespassing, he still had to appear in court. His lawyer tried to spin it, claiming he'd misunderstood, that he was trying to protect the vehicle, that he thought he had verbal permission to move it. The judge wasn't buying it. Karen doubled down in the press. Local blogs picked up the story. Lambo owner battles HOA queen over outrageous demands. The ring footage went semi-viral. Braden became an online meme. When your mom owns the HOA but you still can't hotwire a Lambo, was one of the captions I saw circulating. He even made it onto Reddit's front page for a few hours. His face, caught in mid-panic as the police pulled him out of the car, became symbolic of suburban entitlement gone wild. I didn't post any of it. I didn't have to. The internet did what the internet does. Then came the best part, Karen's resignation. It happened quietly, almost pathetically. One day she was demanding emergency meetings, the next, she was gone. Her house went up for sale a week later. Rumor had it, the board gave her an ultimatum: resign and leave quietly, or be removed publicly. She chose the exit. Braden left too. No one saw him again after court. Karen's house eventually sold to a young couple with twins and an aging golden retriever. They waved the day they moved in. I liked them already. And me? I kept the Lambo, parked right in the same damn driveway. Neighbors waved more now. Some even stopped to chat. One guy who had never said more than 5 words to me in 2 months suddenly offered to trade me his Harley for a test drive. It was like I had passed some secret test. I hadn't just stood up to Karen and Braden. I'd survived the suburban Hunger Games and come out on top. Funny thing was, I never wanted trouble. I just wanted to live quietly, to enjoy the fruits of my hard work, maybe make a few friends and enjoy the peace. But Karen couldn't let that happen. Braden couldn't accept that someone else might have something he wanted, and instead of working for it, he tried to take it. Entitlement like that doesn't vanish overnight. It burns itself out, spectacularly, and everyone watches. In the end, I didn't have to fight dirty. I just had to stand my ground. The law took care of the rest. It had been 3 months since the night Braden was hauled off in the back of a police cruiser, and though the outward chaos had settled, the ripples of that night still shaped Whispering Pines like a low tide revealing buried debris. The air was lighter, calmer, like the neighborhood had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. The once watchful windows now held friendly faces, and the cold nods I used to get on my morning walks were replaced by real greetings. Even the occasional cup of coffee on a neighbor's porch. Karen's house stood empty for a time after she fled. The for sale sign went up fast, and it came down just as quickly, snapped up by a young family relocating from Seattle. The couple, Daniel and Joe Priya, were software engineers like me, down-to-earth, tech-savvy, and chill. Their twin toddlers spent most of the afternoon rolling around the front lawn, laughing, chewing on toys, and occasionally toddling dangerously close to the garden hose. When I met them, Daniel looked at the Lamborghini, then back at me with a smirk and said, "So you're the guy." I laughed and we shook hands. We became fast friends. The HOA, post-Karen, underwent what could only be described as a full detox. Her resignation hadn't just left a vacancy. It opened the floodgates for long overdue reform. Dale was voted in as the interim president, and he took the position seriously without being a tyrant. He established transparency measures, streamlined complaints into a shared portal instead of anonymous letters taped to doors, and most importantly, reinstated a healthy respect for the limits of HOA authority. There was even a community barbecue, the first in over a year. Held in the Central Park, it was a potluck affair, with grills smoking, kids running in circles, and laughter replacing the stifling judgment that had defined the Karen era. Dale made a short speech, half apology, half toast, and nodded in my direction during a remark about the strength of neighbors standing together. But the real karma? That came quietly. Braden pled down to a misdemeanor. He didn't see jail time, but he did get hit with a sizable fine, community service hours, and probation. More importantly, his arrest record followed him like a bad smell. A friend of mine in real estate ran his name through a background check system, and sure enough, it showed up. It would for a long time. He tried to enroll at a local college shortly after the incident. Denied. Tried applying for a used car dealership gig. Denied. According to a friend on the force, he'd even shown up at the police station a few weeks later trying to file a complaint about me, claiming I had entrapped him with high-end bait. It didn't go far. One of the officers who'd been on the scene pulled him aside and told him, "Kid, if you'd stuck to Xbox, none of this would have happened." Karen didn't fare much better. Word had it she relocated to a smaller, more obscure neighborhood 2 counties over, one without an HOA. Apparently, the irony was lost on her. A mutual contact told me she tried to petition their neighborhood council to establish standards shortly after moving in. They laughed her out of the meeting. No one wanted to give her power again. Her name had become synonymous with overreach. I never heard from her again, but I didn't need to. The silence was enough. My own life returned to a comfortable rhythm. I worked remotely, running my startup, occasionally flying out for conferences or investor meetings. The Lamborghini, now lovingly repaired, remained in its rightful place. Parked in the driveway, spotless, a matte black symbol of earned success and quiet defiance. And yet, I never forgot what had happened. I wasn't bitter, just changed. More cautious. I'd installed additional cameras, upgraded my security system, even got to know a few more of the neighbors by name. The isolation that had once made Whispering Pines feel like a quiet retreat now felt more like a community. People knew me now. They knew the story. And they respected that I stood my ground when it mattered. The biggest surprise? A few weeks after Braden's sentencing, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. I opened it expecting more HOA nonsense, but inside was a short handwritten note on plain white paper. I messed up. I thought I could take what I hadn't earned. You didn't deserve that. You don't have to forgive me, but I'm sorry. I stared at the note for a long time.
No threats. No excuses.
Just ink on paper from someone who had hit rock bottom and maybe, just maybe, was starting to understand why. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. It sat in a drawer, tucked behind my car's title and a few old photographs. A reminder, not of what I'd won, but of what I'd endured. Weeks turned into months. Life moved forward. Daniel and Priya invited me over for dinner every other Friday. I started helping tutor a neighbor's teenage daughter in Python after school. Whispering Pines wasn't just tolerable now, it was home. And on weekends, when the weather was right and the roads were clear, I'd take the Huracan out for a drive through the winding mountain roads just outside the city. No one could stop me now. No notes.
No threats.
No Braden watching from across the street with a jealous stare. Just the roar of the engine, the blur of trees, and the open sky ahead. I'd fought a war I didn't start, but I won it on my terms. And in the end, that was the best kind of victory.